Who's ready for an absolutely amazing shiur, Perek, Maamer of Kuntres U'Maayan? And we are picking up on putting together the last two Maamerim we learned. The first one was about adding the full people to the thirsty people. Who are the full people and the thirsty people? So we explained that Yidden are all thirsty for Hashem, and the Goyim are all full. They're all perfectly happy in life. And then, last time we explained how Yidden can only live from Chayes from Kedusha, but they're able to put Chayes into Klippa. So now that we've already explained that, let us get on to the very next piece of the Maamer. You ready? Maamer Ches. Who has it? Who has Maamer Ches? Help me out over here. You guys have it?
We all have it.
That's fantastic. I am very happy to do it. Everything we explained about adding the full, the sated, to the thirsty ones. You know, yesterday I was learning with a bacher, and he's like, I'm very sated after supper. I was very impressed with his English. Yeah. It's from the word satiation. It means full.
It means what?
Full.
Full
of. Through this, the sphere of Malchus, that the sphere of Malchus, which is the shirish of Yiddish and Neshamas, the Yardis Rabiyah goes down. Its feet, which means the bottom of Malchus. Malchus descends all the way from Atzilus, which is part of Hashem, all the way to Bria, Yitzira, Asiyah, which are outside of Hashem. Through this, Hidei Mechaber Rovo, it connects together. The full ones, Shehir Sitra Achra, that's the Sitra Achra, Imatzmeo, with the thirsty ones, the ones that are thirsting for Hashem. Because Malchus, that's Malchus, the Shorish of Yidden. The Kabbalah is Seves Chayes from Kedusha, to receive extra Chayes from Kedusha. So, Zeo, Lepirish Rashi, this is all in accordance with adding together the thirsty ones, which is Malchus, which is always looking to get closer to Hashem, it's thirsting for Hashem, to the full ones, which is the Klippa, which is always just full and taking in more, it's a taker, just me, I want more. This is, according to Perek Rashi, what's going on. When someone does Averis, what do? They take their Kedusha Chayos, they take from Malchus, and they connect it, they bring it down into the full, the satiated, the selfish Klippa. So be careful not to Averis. They're the Perek Rashi. So this only makes sense according to Rashi. Who, what did he explain? You guys remember from 2 Maamerim ago? That he explains, what does Safais mean? It means connect. So he's saying, how do you connect the thirsty with the full, that you're bringing down your Kedusha into Klippa when you do Averis? But what about the other explanation? Who remembers what the other explanation was?
Increase.
Very good. According to the Radak, what does he say? That he says this is talking about making more, increasing. Mao inyan sharova marbe oid al b'chinas tmeya. What does this mean? That the full is increasing the thirsty. According to what we explained so far, if the full one is Klippa and the thirsty one is Kedusha, so what do you mean that Klippa is making Kedusha even more? That doesn't make sense. Klippa should be taking away from Kedusha. So, let's explain this by getting down and dirty. You ready what we're about to say? Where do the Klippas, the Chitzonim, get their life force from? Where do they get their energy from? Why do good things happen to bad people? How come the terrorists have so much money? Why are there some bad people who live long, happy lives? Where do they get their spiritual life force from? He obeys Ifanim. So there's two ways about it. The first one we already discussed in the previous memoir. The first one is like this. Number one is either that they receive life force from the outer, the chitzonius, the superficial expression of Hashem's chayes, which we explained at length in previous memorim. That means when Hashem comes and expresses himself to the world with a lot of tzimtzumim, a lot of concealments. Let's say you have a massive light. There's this massive fog light that you're shining out to the sea to see ships. And then you decide you'd like to read your book in bed with it. So if you shine out your book, you're not going to be able to see anything. Your whole room is going to be dazzling. So you're going to need to put a curtain in front, and a second curtain, and a third curtain. So too when Hashem's coming to the world, to allow the world to exist, he has to cut off this light with whittling it down, making it smaller, more attainable. until the point that there's so little light that even bad things, even clippers, can leach onto it. The beginning is the kalim de malchus that they get from the outer kalim of malchus of Atzilus. So malchus is the way Hashem expresses Himself into the world, and these ketzonim can get a little bit of chayas from the leftovers. I saw an ad when I was walking down the street the other day. New York City is trying to clean up their rat problem.
It sounds exactly like he says. Like he set off the side.
Yeah. Yep, that's a fair point. So New York City is trying to clean up their rat problem, and they've had a rat problem for years. And surprisingly, they also have a garbage problem. I'm not sure if there's any connection. So they had an ad with a picture of a garbage can with a lid open and like waste going all over the place. And it said on it, for a rat, this is a 5-star restaurant. And then they're trying to tell people to like put their garbage in cans and keep it closed. So what's going on here? When people put out their garbage, they definitely weren't planning on feeding the rats. When people bought food from the restaurant, when you have some guy in Park Slope who goes to a very, what's the word again? A specialized imported emporium to buy their organic bananas from a impoverished country, they weren't planning on increasing rats. A leftover, an outcome of that is that the rats get to have a nice meal. So, same thing with chayas. Hashem's giving kedusha into the world, and from the leftovers you have klippa getting a bit of chayas. Fine, fair enough. Now let me ask you guys a question. According to what we just learned, that kedusha gets chayas directly from Hashem, and klippa gets a tiny little leftovers. What should be stronger? What should be bigger? What should be more successful? Kedusha or klippa? What do you guys think? Yeah, if a tzaddik, let's say you have a tzaddik, let's say you have the Baba Sali, and he's receiving kedusha right from Hashem. And let's say you have some Russia, you have some weightlifter, you have some boxer who's a mean guy who's receiving from klippa. Who should be stronger? Who should win in a fight?
The boxer.
Surely the Yid should win in a fight. The guy is getting from kedusha, because klippa is only the tiniest leftovers of the chayas. Why is this discussion important? Because I've never seen some tzaddik get in a boxing ring with some Russia. Because this is happening inside each one of us. Each one of us has a little tzaddik inside of us, there's a nefesh lekis. And a little Russia, that's nefesh bahamas. And they're always fighting it out. So why is it that nefesh bahamas keeps beating us? Let me ask you, let's say you're sitting in shiur, you're trying to learn Torah, and nefesh bahamas tells you, hey, you should go on your phone. So surely, the nefesh lekis should always beat it. Should always be like, no way, I'm not going to get distracted from shiur. I'm going to listen to Hashem. So how could it be that the nefesh bahamas ever has enough chayus, ever has enough energy, ever has enough strength to overcome it? And we're going to find out why it's so powerful and so strong in the second way it receives chayus. Because it doesn't only receive leftovers, like the rats. It doesn't just get leftovers. There's also another way that klippa receives chayus. And this is going to explain why it's so powerful sometimes. But even obeys, way number 2, that klippa receives from makif. It receives from makif means surrounding. So as opposed to Hashem's energy that comes directly into the world, Hashem's energy that's surrounding the world. Now what does it mean surrounding the world? Does that mean that there's a giant bubble, or that there's like a spaceship that keeps orbiting the earth? That would be very silly. That would be very, very silly. Rather, makif, when we say surrounding, we mean that it doesn't directly affect because it's too high to directly affect. It comes in a superficial way, not because it's lower than directly affecting things, rather because it's too high. So, let me give you an example of directly affecting and higher than that and lower than that. Directly affecting, let's say you guys come to this shiur, and you come out of the shiur and you're like, you know what, I really understood shiur today, it was in my language, great shiur, I'm going to write a summary of it and publish my summary on Chabad.org. Fantastic, you understood shiur. Now let's say I gave shiur, but I stayed up all night, and I was falling asleep, and I gave the shiur I just didn't string the words together, and you guys stayed up all night, and you were falling asleep, and you weren't really listening. That's going to be lower than understanding. You're going to walk out, and like, what was shiur about today? Like, I don't really know, I have no idea, I'll figure it out tomorrow. That's lower than understanding. Then you have higher than understanding. You have Rabbi Yoel comes in, he gives a shiur in Yiddish, on the deepest ideas of Chassidus, and you're really struggling to keep up because your Yiddish is okay, but like these deep concepts are really difficult. And you come out of shiur, you have the same situation, exactly the same situation as when you didn't really understand what's going on. Exactly the same. You come out, you're like, yeah, I'm not sure what happened today. But that's because it was too high. It's the same thing with Hashem's chayos affecting the world. You have that. A way Hashem affects us in a direct way that comes to us. Hashem gives us brachos, He gives us chayos, it comes and helps our lives. Then you have the leftovers, the lowest part of that goes to Klippa. Then you have what's above that. What's too high to directly affect the world. And when I say directly affect the world, I mean it can't come and differentiate that this is good, so it gets more chayos, this is bad, it gets less chayos. It's just Hashem revealing Himself. It's just Hashem's energy. It's just nuclear power, unbridled power. Let me give you one more example of this. That if you have in your house, the power goes out. You ever had a power outage in your house?
Yeah.
So there's two ways that could happen. One way the power what's supposed to happen is your house is supposed to get exactly the right amount of power it's supposed to get. If the power line goes down, my brother sent me a video of outside his store in his his company's warehouse in Canarsie, a power line went down a few months ago. If you push it, it was kind of scary. It was just lying on the street, this big pole with all this power box on it, and like making lightning, like with itself. It was like it was in the middle of self-combusting. Anyways, so if the power line goes down, you're not going to have enough power in your house, so it's not going to work. Or if someone messes around with the settings or they don't have a transistor and you get way too much power, it's going to short circuit. So you have the same thing in the world. You have Hashem sometimes is giving everyone the right amount of chayos. Now the Klippa gets the little leftovers of that. But then there's another way Hashem affects the world. The original way, before the transistor, before the tzimtzumim, the way Hashem is just giving energy. And if anyone can tap into that, then they'll have superpower energy. They'll have tons of energy. Too much energy. So Klippa can tap into that. Why is Klippa able to tap into that? Firstly, it's not fair. Well, how can it do that? Firstly, we have in brackets. It receives from the outer part, meaning the outer part of Makif. It's not receiving directly. Hashem is never giving to it with a big smile. Hashem's giving, okay, you can have the leftovers. But here, Klippa is tapping into the leftovers of Makif, the leftovers of the power that's above the world. Hashem's undistilled energy, straight out of the nuclear power plant. Then it's going to be really powerful. Now we can understand why the Nefesh Bahamis is so strong. That's why, by the way, the Nefesh Bahamis shouldn't be destroyed. Rather, we should use it for a good purpose. If someone's really into going and running around, they have a lot of energy, they shouldn't just shut themselves down and sit down. They should use that to run to a mitzvah.
How come in the olden days they destroyed it then?
I don't know. So maybe some people are very special people. But most people, if you can use it for Kedusha, that's even higher. I think the type of people that would try to get rid of the Nefesh Bahamis are people who are worried that they're not going to be able to tame it in the right direction. It's different between tzaddik v'radlei and tzaddik v'toivlei. So, now that we figured out that Klippa has two ways of existing. One way is from getting the leftovers. It makes sense. Rashi's pirush of connecting the full to the thirsty, that you're taking from the thirsty, from Kedusha, which is thirsty for Hashem, and you're giving a bit of chayos to Klippa, which is full. Now that we found out there's a second meaning, that Klippa can get chayos from Makif. Now what happens? Before we go further, I'd just like to say, why is it fair? It's not fair. Why should Klippa be able to tap into Makif? So Hashem's not going to directly give to Klippa. Hashem's not like, oh, Klippa, I really love Klippa, I'm going to make that exist. Hashem makes it exist because He, as a means to an end. It's called Derech HaCharayim. It's like, I don't really want this, but in order to have a world with free choice, there has to be bad things. So they can either get the leftovers, or they can get before it's distilled. Either way, it's in an indirect way, but one it's below, one it's above, like we explained until now. Now, it's a bit confusing. Why in the world would Klippa get so much? It's very, very confusing. And now we're going to get into it in the Maamer where he's going to explain what's going on over here. Are you ready for a little bit of Medrash? It goes as follows. That. Ve'inyan. You ready for this? Ve'inyan, you guys have it?
Yeah.
Right near the top of the page. Ve'inyan hu, the explanation is, Dihine Amru, it says in Ovis Perek Hey, everyone knows this. You ready for this? Asera Dayris, there were 10 generations from Adam ad Noach, from Adam until Noach. Yeah, anyone know all the 10 generations? There's Adam, then his son was... Who was his third son? Shais. And then... Come on, help me out. Noach was after 10 generations. Noach, who was there? There was like Mr. Shelach and Enosh. There's a lot of people in the middle. Who? No. Noach had Avram, and from Noach until Avram, there was another 10 generations. Right?
Ava.
Shem and Aver were the first generation after Noach. Very good. L'idea, to let you know, why were there so many generations? So 20 generations. If you think of it, half the world's history, nearly half the world's history is before the Torah was given. It's prehistoric. It was just this time that no one really knows anything about. The time before, like even the Bronze Age, the time before the Yidden were in Mitzrayim.
For the Ice Age.
Yeah, half of it was before the flood, and we don't know really very much about that at all. And then half of it was before the Yidden even went down to Mitzrayim. Even in if you learn history or you learn Torah, there's very little information we know about that time. It's very strange. What were people even doing then? It was all just a prelude until the Torah was given, and like the world kicked off, and we finally got to make a Beis Hamikdash and start like really bringing Mashiach. So what was going on there? Hainu, meaning Shekol Adur. So what does it say in Perek Avos? That Hashem has so much patience that from Adam to Noach are 10 generations. From Noach to Avraham, there's another 10 generations. The idea to let you know, Kama Erech HaPayim L'Fanav. How much patience Hashem has. Erech HaPayim means lengthening. HaPayim means angers. So Hashem pushes off his anger so much that all these generations came and went. And all of them, people in these generations were sinners, they were idol worshippers, they were steal. You know what they would do? They had this scam they would do. That they'd get all your buddies together, and they'd go to someone's house, and everyone would take less than a pruta, less than a cent from the guy. So the guy's making supper, lentil soup, everyone takes 1 lentil. So the guy has spice in his cabinet, everyone takes 1 grain of spice. So the guy calls the police, and like, what did they take? And like, that guy, he stole from me half a cent's worth. The guy, like, I'm sorry, you can't sue him for less than a cent. And then they'd get people would lose everything they own, because everyone was taking from him less than a cent. So it's just an example of how wicked people were in those generations. So why would Hashem have so much patience? And what's this teaching us? What's the inner meaning? The outer meaning is very simple. It's to show us that Hashem is incredibly patient. All these people did sins for thousands of years. Hashem had patience. But let's look at the inner meaning. Hainu, meaning Shekol Adoros, all these generations, they received chayus from what's called Erech HaPayim. Ooh, now we're getting into a little bit of Kabbalah. So, what is Erech HaPayim? Erech HaPayim, until we said now, means pushing off angers. It means patience. But, did you know that Erech HaPayim is not just a description, it's actually an existent form of one of Hashem's middos. When we say the Yud Gimel Rachmim, 13 attributes of mercy, we say Hashem, Hashem. What do we say? Help me out here. Kel Racham Mechanan. Erech HaPayim. There we go. It's one of Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy. And how does this work? This 13 attributes. So let's find out. We're going to find out right now from bringing a Gemara. Oh, Kamosha Amar Zal, like we were taught in the Gemara. Why is it called pushing off angers? Erech Afim Boile. Should have said pushing off anger. Wouldn't that make more sense? Hashem pushes off his anger. That makes sense. Hashem pushes off his angers. What does that mean? Ella Erech HaPayim L'Tzadikim, Erech HaPayim L'Shoyim. Rather, he pushes off his apayim for the righteous, and he pushes off his apayim for the wicked. What does that mean? Pirush Rashi. You ready for Rashi to help us out? Apayim mashma ponim. The shayach of apayim is, it could be af, is the regular meaning, but here we're looking at a deeper meaning that the shayach is ponim, the face. There's one type of face, mashma ponim bein shayach bein zoyemos. There's the different types of face. You could show someone's face with a big smile. You could show someone's face with angry. Like, think of all the different emojis there are for faces. So one's a big smile emoji. One is the red in the face angry emoji, right? So what happens with Hashem's smiling face? Meaning, who does he give kindness to? He pushes it off for tzadikim l'asad lavai, for Mashiach comes. So Hashem's keeping all this goodness and all this reward for the tzadikim in the right time. What about angry face? Who's that for? Hashem pushes off for the Rishoyim, and he pushes off there, getting paid back. Their payback time for the world to come. So what does it mean that Hashem pushes off his angers? It's not angers. The deeper meaning is he pushes off his faces. The smiling face, tzaddikim nowadays are going to have a hard time, but when Mashiach comes, they're going to get all their reward. Hashem's pushing it off for them then. And Rishoyim, they could look like they're having such a nice life. Yeah, Hillel, you asked me about this.
Yeah.
How can Rishoyim have such a happy life? Well, it's very nice for them now, but Hashem's pushing off their punishment for the world of truth. So, now that we found out that there's two different forms of faces that Hashem's pushing off for the good people and for the not so good
It's not black
people.
and white, I thought it's not black and white. I thought that for some tzaddikim, they only get rewarded like later, and some tzaddikim get rewarded also.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think this is talking in general terms. More specifically, there are people who do good and bad, so therefore Hashem gives them some punishment and some reward. And some people do only good or only bad, which is very rare to find such a person. And that person would only get reward or only get punishment. Fine. Do you know anyone who does only good or only bad?
The Rebbe does only good.
Oh, smart. So,
Hitler does only bad.
who?
Hitler does only bad.
Maybe. So, are we ready to go weiter? And this is going to be the last point. I think we're going to leave off today because tomorrow we are getting into that the way Ein Sof comes into the world. You guys going to be ready for that? I can't wait for tomorrow. Is there anything else I wanted to say now? I want to say a story, but we're out of time. Sorry. I'm going to say the story.